Today I'm going to do a replacement of my clock spring in my 2011 Toyota Tacoma. The clock spring is behind the steering wheel. It looks like this. These connectors connect to the airbag, and there's other things I plug in that you'll see. This is the old one, and I already replaced it, but I couldn't figure out what this part is. Apparently this part is separate, so I ordered a replacement clock spring, but it didn't have this part on, and so the thing that plugs into here, which I believe is for traction control, it knows by putting this in here, the truck knows like which way the wheels are turning, and that helps with traction control. Apparently, I'm not sure because I couldn't find resources. That's why I'm doing a video. So I popped this piece out of the old clock spring. You can see all around are things like this, and these little notches pop into the piece. So I stuck pins in all along the edge here to hold those open, and then this piece just popped out. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is first take off this piece, and there's my cruise control there. I already popped these off with a little mini, sorry about the video, with a little mini pry bar here. So on each side there's those, and they just pop off. Then I think it's a Torx 30 bit that I used. There's one screw on each thing, and that just loosens that. So I should be able to pop off this thing right here, and that has my airbag in it. I haven't yet disconnected my battery, so I'm gonna disconnect the battery first. I hope that will prevent it from popping open in my face. It should be fine even if I don't disconnect the battery, but I want to be safe. And here's the thing, my horn wasn't working, so that's why I'm replacing the clock spring. And the lights that come on now after replacing it, but not taking off that other piece, the lights that came on are the airbag light and this traction control light. So I'm hoping by taking the new part and putting that extra piece back on, it should work. So I'm gonna go disconnect the battery. I won't show you that because I assume you know how, and then I'll resume with taking the airbag off. Okay, I've disconnected my battery, and here is the thing popped off. I just went in here and moved the little, can you see that? I just moved these screws out of the way so that this airbag thing would pop off. This has 3 wires. I think this one is a ground. I'll just pop that off by hand if I can. I'll do it after I show you this. And then these are attached to the airbag. These just pop up. I'm gonna try to be careful and not break these because it's rather important. I'm gonna set my phone down and do this, but basically carefully pry these things up. Okay, so I got these loose. The stock piece was easier than the aftermarket cheap Chinese piece. So these, now that I lifted these yellow things up, these should just pop right out like this. And I've also disconnected that brown wire, and there's my airbag. Just set it aside. And then next, there's a green wire and there's this brown wire. So what I did is just disconnect the green, disconnect this brown one here. So just remember where everything goes. Take pictures if you need to, but yeah, I'll show you how that goes back in when I do this. So you need a I don't know the metric size. I think it's like 19 millimeters. I used a 11/16 inch socket to loosen this. So that's incorrect. I used a 3/4 inch socket to loosen this nut here. So that fits tightly enough. I can do that. So what I'll do is I'll put an extender on there, and then a ratchet, and then I'll hold this steering wheel with my knees real tight, and I'll loosen that nut there. That's the next thing I'm gonna do. I'll put the phone down again while I loosen that, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so here's the nut. I loosened it. Just removing it by hand now. And the steering wheel is attached there. It's important before you start all this to have your wheels straight and to have your steering wheel straight, and then keep track however you want, either by making a mark or whatever, where this steering wheel fits in there. Otherwise your wheel's not going to be straight, and you might bust your clock spring right away. So just make sure your wheels are straight and your steering wheel's straight. I'm going to pop it off. All the wires that I need disconnected are disconnected, so it'll just come out. Don't bust the airbag wires. Pops out just like that. I'll set that aside. And here is my clock spring. The clock spring snaps in there with three little, sorry, I got a wire tangled. Three little pieces like this, so should be able to just, I'm gonna have to take off this piece first. As you can see, there's two Phillips head screws. I'll take off this top piece and this piece right here, and you may or may not need to raise or lower the steering wheel assembly there in order to get these things off. So I'll remove these two screws, and then pop off these pieces. Then I'll be able to access the clock spring. Okay, so I'll be reusing this clock spring that I've already put in, so I need to note the orientation of this so that I don't get that wrong, because if I get it turned too far, that's not going to work. Alright, anyways, I loosened some things so I can do this with one hand. There's a couple of connectors here I just unplugged. Up top, you just unsnap it there, unsnap it on that side, and unsnap it on this side. There is also, as I take this off and carefully note the orientation of it, there is also this plug right here, which I covered with electrical tape, because when I replaced my clock spring, my new one did not have that connector. And again, that is because, I'm sorry, I misplaced the piece. That's because this piece, which was connected to my old clock spring, is not part of the replacement part. So I had to pop this off of my old clock spring, which I just did, and now I'm going to connect it to my new clock spring. It should just sorry, I don't want to mess this up, but it should just snap in. So I'm gonna be careful and just stop the video and do that by hand, and then I'll show you the completed piece and plug everything back in. Okay, so I've snapped this additional part back into place on the new clock spring, and now all that remains is me to plug that gray piece into the gray plug, and that yellow one back in, and that black one back in. Make sure this clock spring is snapped in place using these three pieces on the sides. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then I can put the steering wheel back on. Okay, so I'm ready to put the steering wheel back on. I put the clock spring on, plugged everything back in, and the clock spring is snapped in. Then I connected this top piece with this other piece. You'll know, you know, they snap together and you can kind of see how they're two pieces there. So you'll figure it out. You just got to pry them apart when you get them apart, and then snap them back together when you put them back together. Put the two Phillips screws in, and then put the steering wheel back on. So here's the steering wheel. This is going to be difficult to do with one hand, but I'll try to show you. Make sure those airbag wires go through. Those are very important, so don't mess them up. And I kind of wound my clock spring there. I'm going to set this phone down, put those wires through, and then show you the rest. Okay, I've put the steering wheel back on. Got the airbag wires there. I'm gonna plug in this green piece where it came out of. I'm gonna put this brown wire back where it came from. This is, I believe, the ground for the airbag, or whatever that function is that plugs into the airbag. And this brown wire goes in down here. Okay. So now I'm ready to put the airbag back with all three of these wires connected to it properly the way it came. And the way you do that is you pull these out and stick them in, and once they're in, snap the yellow piece down. I'll show you that. And that will be pretty much it. So let me grab the airbag. I should be able to do this right in front of you. I'll start with the simple brown one. Just slides in there carefully. Airbags are important. And sorry again for my bad video skills. I do hope this video helps people though. You know, I can't reach the wires to the airbag while showing you, so I'm gonna do this off camera. But stick these in the correct orientation with the yellow tabs out, and then once you've got them fully seated in there, then you press the yellow tab down and they're snapped in. And that's that. I've got those airbag wires plugged in the way I described. Again, we need to hook this airbag back in there, just set it in there, and on each side you got these little Torx screws. So position them in there and tighten them down. I didn't show you these covers before, but these things are the things that I just snapped off. They're so easy to pop in, I'll just do it with one hand so you can see. And there's one on the other side too. So I'm ready to take this for a test drive. I'll give you my final thoughts after the test drive. All right guys, this is completely exciting. I'm pulling up to my garage after having test drove it. The horn works, the steering wheel controls work, the cruise control works, the airbag light is not on, and the traction control light is not on. So this was a successful repair, and I am very pleased to have this job finally done. I hope this helps you and you will be equally pleased with your results. The steering wheel is going straight. Watch other videos to get an idea of how this is done. But I think if you have the same part that I have, you're gonna have the same problem that I have if you haven't already seen the bit about taking off that traction control piece and whatever else that might be connected with, and taking that off and installing it on your new clock spring, because it is not part of the clock spring itself. It's a different part apparently. So that was the key thing for me. That was my mistake, and I also apologize again for my video skills. my skills in doing these things are not great because I don't do it much, and I am not a mechanic. So again, watch other videos if you're not sure about any of the steps. Again, this was a 2011 Toyota Tacoma. Have a great day.